Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into Peter Thiel's radical playbook for startups, 0 to 1. It's all about this one big idea. The greatest successes, they don't come from just making something a little bit better. Nope, they come from creating something completely and totally new.
So Thiel kicks things off with this pretty bold claim. The next Mark Zuckerberg? Not gonna start another social network. And his reasoning is actually pretty simple. Every truly game-changing moment in business, it only happens once.
And that really gets to the heart of his whole philosophy. See, he says there's no magic formula, no step-by-step guide to building a revolutionary company. It's not about going from 1 to N, just making small improvements on something that's already out there. The real magic, the real breakthrough, is going from 0 to 1. It's about creating something out of thin air.
So if there's no formula, what's the goal? Well, Thiel's first piece of advice is pretty out there. He basically tells you to forget everything you've heard about competition being a good thing. Instead, he says you should do the exact opposite. Aim to build a monopoly. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Monopoly sounds bad, right? But hold on. When Thiel says monopoly, he doesn't mean some evil empire that crushes all its rivals. What he's really talking about is a business that is so unique, so incredibly good at what it does, that it basically creates its own category. There's just no close substitute.
And this chart, it just lays it all out perfectly. Thiel says there are really only two kinds of businesses in the world. On one side, you've got these companies locked in this crazy cutthroat competition. They're all just fighting over scraps. Their profit margins are razor thin, and they're basically just trying to survive day to day. But then, on the other side, you have the monopolies. They have the breathing room, the profit, the freedom to actually think about the future and, innovate.
All right, so let's move on to the next big myth that Thiel wants to completely demolish. And this is the idea that the future is just totally random, that you should just kind of react and tweak things as they come. Yeah, Thiel is having none of that. He actually talks about playing chess and how it taught him a huge lesson early on. A bad plan is still way better than no plan at all. So while you can't predict every single move, just throwing your hands up and saying the future is out of your control, to him, that's just a recipe for failure. You absolutely have to have a plan. You know that whole lean startup thing? The idea of just throwing a minimum viable product out there and then iterating and iterating. Well, Thiel thinks it's kind of overrated. He argues that tweaking things only works if you start with something genuinely great and you have a real long-term vision. Otherwise, you're just optimizing something that was flawed from the very beginning. And there's no better example of this than the story of Facebook, way back in 2006. So you've got this 22-year-old Mark Zuckerberg. His company has some revenue, but it's not profitable. And then Yahoo comes along and drops this on his desk, a $1 billion offer to buy the whole thing. I mean, think about it. Most of us would have taken that money and been on a beach somewhere, right? Zuckerberg himself was looking at a personal payday of $250 million. But instead, he said this. He knew his plan for Facebook was so much bigger than what Yahoo could even comprehend at the time. And this is the key takeaway. Zuckerberg had a concrete plan. He actually went to his board and told them about all these products and features they hadn't even started building yet. He argued that Yahoo just wasn't valuing that future. And man, was he right. It's just a powerful example of sticking to a long-term plan over a quick, massive payday. So this all leads us to Thiel's next big idea, which he calls the competition trap. And it's all about this insane societal pressure that pushes all the smartest, most ambitious people down the exact same super crowded paths. I mean, just think about it from the time we're kids, right? Our whole system is set up like this massive tournament. Get into the best school, build up this perfect, well-rounded resume, win all the competitions, all just to land that one prestigious job. Everyone is competing on the exact same terms for the same prize. And look, he knows this firsthand. He followed that path all the way to a top-tier law firm in New York, and he felt completely trapped. He said it was bizarre. On the outside, everyone was desperate to get in, but on the inside, everyone was desperate to get out. So when he finally bailed after only 7 months, one of his colleagues said this to him. What a metaphor, right? Escaping from Alcatraz. So that instinct we have to copy others, which is great when you're a kid learning how to, tie your shoes, can be really dangerous as an adult. It leads to what he calls the madness of crowds. We see it in crazy business competition, we see it in financial bubbles. Everyone just starts chasing the same thing and they completely lose sight of what actually has real, lasting value. Okay, so let's say you do it. You escape the formula. You get out of the competition trap. You step off that well-worn path. What then? What's the meaningful alternative?
Well, for Thiel, it's not about just wanting to be an entrepreneur. He says that's kind of a shallow goal, like just wanting to be rich or famous. The real reason, the only good reason to start a company, is because you are deeply, truly passionate about solving an important problem that nobody else is working on.
And he has a special name for these kinds of opportunities. He calls them secrets. Now, a secret isn't some crazy conspiracy theory. It's much simpler. It's just an important truth or a solvable problem that for whatever reason, most people just have a blind spot for. They just aren't seeing it yet.
So he forces you to ask yourself, what kind of business are you building? Are you building, say, the 4th online pet food company? Or the 10th startup making thin film solar panels? Or the 1000th restaurant in your city? You have to ask that tough question. If you stopped doing what you're doing tomorrow, would somebody else just pop up and take your place?
Or are you working on something truly unique? Something he calls counterfactual, meaning you're tackling a problem that, if it weren't for you, would probably just go unsolved. And according to Thiel, that is where you find real meaning.
And in the end, everything we've talked about really boils down to this one powerful, provocative question. It's a challenge, really. A call to stop copying, stop competing for the sake of competing, and instead to really dig deep and find that one unique contribution that only you can bring to the world.